Welcome to Transformative Principal, where we interview real principals who are doing amazing things to help our students every single day. I'm your host, Jethro Jones. You can find me on Twitter at Jethro Jones. I am really excited to finish this interview with Curt Rees. He is amazing, an inspiration to us all very easily. You're going to love this episode. But before we get into the episode, I want to tell you a little bit about how grateful I am for all of you who have downloaded this podcast. If you are listening to this episode, then you are probably one of the people who helped me hit 3,000 downloads in just a few short months. Thank you so much. Every single month this podcast has grown. And this last month, I didn't think that I was going to beat the month of April because we had that big interview with George Couros, which a lot of people listened to. And yet we did. And that's pretty amazing. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your support. You downloading it and sharing it with your friends is definitely helping other people learn from these great principals that I am so fortunate to be able to interview. If you have an idea of someone that I should be interviewing that I haven't yet, please shoot me a note on Twitter, email, however you can get in touch with me. My phone number is 8017-JETHRO. That's 801-753-8476. Feel free to give me a call. That's my cell phone. And I'd love to hear about some great principals you think I should be interviewing. In this episode with Curt Rees today, we're going to talk about how humble and amazing Curt is. He is just inspiring. We're going to talk about how he recognizes other people's efforts and how he realizes that technology is not about technology, but about connecting with other people, which has been a common theme with the principals that I've interviewed who are into technology. I hope you really enjoy it, and I hope you share it with your friends. And I hope that you will rate it on iTunes and on Stitcher so that other people can learn about it and be able to learn the great things that are being shared here. So let's change the topic a little bit. You've been you've been on Twitter for a few years, and I looked today. You've got like 21,000 tweets. And how do you manage the time that it takes to be involved in conversations with people? You've got like 8,000 followers and following a few thousand people yourself. How do you find the time to manage all of that while you're being a principal? And what I'm really asking is, what advice would you give for someone who wants to connect with others, who's maybe not able to figure out how to make that happen and balance their lives?
All right. What I would say is, hold on a second, let me turn off this over here. What I would say is, with all these different social media tools, don't feel like you have to know all of them or even use all of them. Pick one or two that really have your interest in and might meet a need, and stick with those. And Twitter is one I think is just extremely easy to use. It's free. It allows you to connect with people literally around the world. And my other advice for people who are new to Twitter, well, I don't even have. They might say, I don't even have time to check my email. So how am I supposed to check all these tweets? And I say, you don't. You look at it as you want to. Pay attention to your notifications if you want to see if anyone is sending you a message, right to you. But otherwise, just look at your Twitter timeline and you pay attention to the things that you want to, and then you'll start to just naturally build your own personal learning network. So don't be afraid of it. Don't feel like you have to read everything, and try to just share anecdotal information about how the connections are what's most beneficial. It isn't just the tech itself is what it allows you to do. An example is I had interacted a lot with Bill Ferriter on Twitter, and he's a teacher in North Carolina. Really shares some great information about professional learning communities, not only on his blog but through Twitter, but his books also. So knowing that he was going to be at the PLC Summit in Minneapolis this past summer, exchanged some messages with him, said, "Hey, looking forward to seeing you face to face," and went to his presentation. He did a fantastic job, of course, but then later ran into him at the hotel lobby, And it's like, hey, Bill. He's like, hey, Curt, how are you? And I was with my administrative colleagues. And he's like, hey, let's go grab a beverage together. And
Mm-hmm.
they all seem kind of like floored, like, how do you know this guy already?
Right.
And so I like to share anecdotal information to help people understand what it might lead to. 140 character isn't going to change your life, but it's the online relationships and connections that you make will help you become a better educator.
Yeah, absolutely. I love hearing different people's stories about that because almost everybody has some story that relates back to the connection that they made and how that helped them
Mm-hmm.
personally, and that's just a powerful thing that there are a lot of people who still aren't connecting on the internet with other educators, and I feel like we're all missing out when more people aren't
Right.
there connecting. So
Yeah, and I've co-opted a Harry Potter term to describe people who aren't connected or who just don't get it or aren't interested. And I like to call them muggles.
uh-huh,
There's
yeah,
nothing wrong with being a muggle, but it's just some people get it and some people don't, and eventually they might. And I think it's important that with this technology, whether it's a device or social media, it isn't about the tech itself. And like you said, Jethro, it's the connections that you get with actual real live human being people. And that wasn't real obvious to me at first. I went to a session at a tech conference here in Wisconsin, and the session was led by a guy named John Pederson.
mm-hmm.
His Twitter handle is iJohn Pederson, Pederson. If you want to find him, highly recommend anyone follow him. And that's what he said. So his whole session was just on digital connectedness, and he's like, "Hey, this is all about people. That's what these things are. So if anyone is afraid of it, the worst thing that's going to happen."
Just froze. Hey, we back?
Yep, you
All right.
froze on me. You froze on me, or I froze on you. One of the two.
Something like that. So you were talking about John Pederson's session.
Yep, John Pederson is he's a technologist here in the state of Wisconsin. Works for WisCnet, and his session that he led was just about digital connections and like digital culture, and that was the point that he made that really didn't sink in for me at first, and it was that all of this technology, whether it's an app or a device, it just helps you connect with other people. So make sure that, and typically on social media, in terms of educators anyway, most of the people who are choosing to use it are very positive and they're very engaged, uh, with doing what's right for kids in our
Yeah.
school communities. So those are the type of connections you're going to make with other positive, engaging people who want to do great things for schools.
Yeah, and those are really important. I had the chance to interview George Couros a couple of weeks ago when he was here for a conference. Same type of thing. I just reached out to him on Twitter, and it was an amazing interview. His keynote at the conference was awesome, also, and he was saying the same things that you can do amazing things, and when we share and we have the focus on students, then uh, on what's best for students, then we can lift everybody up to a higher level.
Right.
And I just think that's really amazing.
And
So let's
yeah,
switch.
I just want to say that sharing piece is so absolutely important. I
Right.
talked about my Voxer group, and that's frequently what we do is, we share ideas that we've done for like Administrative Assistance Day, Teacher Appreciation Week, great activities for kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's shift and talk a little bit about your school. What are some of the things that you're doing at your school right now that you are especially proud of? You've been there for 10 years. That's a long
Mhm.
time to put things in place and figure out what doesn't work for you and figure out what does. Talk about some of the things that you're really proud of right now.
Yeah, the first thing I want to point out is that our school community successfully supported a funding referendum. So we're going to expand and then remodel every square inch of my school.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah, and so that's a fun process, and it really brings the staff together as we're planning this new school, which is what it'll be. So we're really proud about that. But just in thinking about technology, which I do a lot,
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that are really going well right now is I have a librarian. Her name is Crystal Brunelle, and she's a book lover, but she's more than just a book loving librarian. She's also fantastic with technology and helping kids learn and collaborate with it. So she leads a group of fifth grade students who record some weekly announcements, and it's about 2 to 3 minute videos about highlights that are good things that are happening in the school. So the kids do all the recording of the video with an iPad, and then they drop it onto one of our iMacs, and then they do all the production of it too, and then upload it to YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a great way just to capture all the good things that are going on, and then those are shared out with all the teachers who then play them for their students in their classroom. But then also that type of video, I think, is a fantastic thing to share out with parents. And for the most part, how we do that is we just take that same video and put it on our school Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
And it allows parents to see some of the great things that are going on at school. And I think that's important, especially for the parents who don't have the availability to come into school during the day because of their work schedule, or maybe they live in another town. But then also, I've been thrilled to see so much grandma and grandpa interaction with our Facebook page. Yeah. So my school is Northern Hills Elementary. So if you wanted to certainly take a look at our Facebook page, just search that and you'll find us. And Facebook has been a lot of fun, just because it gives me a different focus about when I walk through school, I'm not just paying attention to what isn't going right, because there's a lot of that happens, because when you work with kids, not every single moment is a great one. But there'll be some times of the day when I'm out just to find awesome photos and events, and I'll take a quick video or snap some pictures, and it's been a good way for me to focus on all that good stuff that's going on, which is a large majority of what it is.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I liked that was on your blog recently was your happy day at Northern Hills. Can you talk a little bit about what got that started and why you guys were paying attention to International Happy Day?
Yeah, International Happy Day. So was I think it was the United Nations Foundation teamed up with Farrell the singer, and there was an International Happy Day, and he said, "Hey, use my song." So one of my teachers, Kimberly Betzold, I think she had noticed it. She's a Twitter user as well, and she had seen it and said, "Hey, wouldn't this be cool to do?" And she had seen some of the other videos that we've made at school and I've made personally. So it was her idea to get us going, and then Melissa Grady was another teacher who helped out with it. So knowing that I couldn't take all the pictures and take all the videos, it was a collective effort. So I just sent out an email to the whole staff saying, "This is coming up. So when you have happy moments that are going on in your classroom today or this week, if you would snap a photo, take a video, and then share them with me." And so they sent them all to me, and I did the final video edits. It just happened to be a day where my own child was sick at home and he was sleeping, so I was, I had plenty of time in front of the computer to put it all together. But it was a great example of, thinking about those 4 C's again: critical thinking. How are we going to do this? The communication piece, and the collaboration amongst myself and the staff. But then also the creativity with what some of the students and teachers did about, hey, here's a happy moment. Let's make sure we send this to Mr. Rees.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a lot of things that I want to ask you, so we can spend more time on something if you want. But you recently talked about your blog post was people make stuff up on the internet and other people believe it, and talking to your son about a fact, quote unquote, that he had read on the internet, and how you had your own moment with Pope Francis' address to the Third Vatican Council, and what I liked about this post was that you were admitting that you were not taking your own advice and were doing what you teach your own child and probably your students at school to not do. So, and that's something that I've admired about you, is that you tell things like they are, and I don't feel like you're ever trying to be like, I'm this perfect person, but you recognize when you make mistakes. Can you talk about how you do that with your teachers at school and with the students that you work with?
Yeah, and I think it's important to model that. That not every single moment or action that we take works out really well. Modeling it to my teachers, but then also I have several teachers, many teachers, who do that with their students. For example, Mr. Shams, he teaches 2nd grade. I'll be in his classroom and he'll be frustrated with a student or with how a lesson is going, and I'll see him kind of talking to himself, but he doesn't intentionally. So he shows the students, boy, I'm really feeling frustrated about this, and I wished it had gone better, or I had asked you to do this and it isn't working out. I'm just going to take a minute. I'm going to go over to my desk and just collect myself. So I love how he models that. So I've learned a lot from him, and it's showing the students, here's how you take care of it. Okay, you know what? Being mad and frustrated is an absolutely normal human emotion. It's okay. We're not going to make any rules against that, but it's how we deal with it that's most important. So I see examples like that too. And also at my school, when I started working there, I was only 31 years old. So, at the time I thought I knew everything, but 10 years later, no, I didn't. And I'm like, well, why did you hire me? So thankfully I was able to recognize that I didn't know everything. And we're able to hire some great educators in my district who I know have the answers to certain things. And I'm able to say, this is not my strength. So I need to go talk to Mrs. Foss, who's my PE teacher. She has a fantastic mind for just figuring out schedules. I don't. You know what? I don't even want to get good at scheduling because I know I have people who can do it. So I will turn to them. And I just think it's important to focus on all of our strengths. More love for my superintendent, Dr. Finko. This summer, with our administrative team, he led a book study on the book Strengths-Based Leadership. So it's from the Strengths Finder, which is from the Gallup organization.
Yeah.
And I love that it wasn't, we were going to find out what's wrong with each of us, and then we had to write a 10-step action plan on making those weaknesses better. Not the case at all. It was, let's focus on our strengths. Let's take a look. Yeah, fantastic book. My wife had done it too, and she was the first one I saw use it. So I just love it because it's, here's what we're good at. Let's take a look at our team, who's good at what, and let's make sure that we're giving those folks opportunities to use those strengths. And if you were given an assignment or a task that doesn't play to your strengths, ask for help. Here's who you can turn to. So I think that's important, just about being authentic and honest. And I don't have to be Superman. I just have to know what I'm good at and when and where I need to turn for help.
Yeah, and the fear that I think a lot of administrators have, especially new administrators, is that if I act like that, that means that I'm weak, or that I'm not good enough, or that I'm not a great enough leader to be worthy of this position of principal. How do you respond to that?
I think it's I think it's a weakness not to recognize your weaknesses and your strengths. And I'm able to say this now, after having been an administrator for 13 years. I don't know what my answer would have been when I was, 28, first getting this whole thing figured out. I probably might have thought it was a weakness, but thankfully I was able to work with some wise people who, gave me good advice, and gave me a poke when I needed a poke about chilling out on some certain things.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for school leaders to just really be excellent listeners. You don't have to agree with everything you hear, but be a good listener and understand where everyone in your school community is coming from. I think that's important.
Yeah. So you said when you were 31, you thought you knew everything. How did you grow in that regard, and what kinds of things did you do to humble yourself and focus on your strengths and weaknesses in a different way, so that you didn't feel like you did have to know everything?
Probably just through the experience of being an evaluator of other teachers in my building. So if I'm fairly new to, because I only taught in the classroom for 4 years, and I was a good teacher. I didn't have enough time in the classroom to ever become a great teacher.
Right.
But when you spend time in someone's classroom who's been teaching for 20, 30 years, and they're an excellent teacher, you quickly realize this person absolutely knows what they're doing, and I don't. Not that it was a negative thing; it was just a fact. I mean, it was hard to argue.
Right.
So then, what I would find is that when I would have new teachers to my building, maybe they were new to the career, a lot of the advice I would give them after an observation was based on what I saw going on in another teacher's room. So it isn't, rarely would I ever say, when I was a teacher, here's what I would do. It's like, what I just saw just 2 days ago, Mrs. Werner in her class, she was doing this fantastic lesson, and I think it would really help you with what you're trying to pull off here. And then I would connect them. So that's, a lot of what I learned was just paying attention to good things going on at school, and then realizing who else needs to see those good things.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I've noticed as you've been talking is that you're very quick to give credit to other people and to defer praise from yourself to those who are around you. Why is it that you do that?
Well, because I think it's the truth, and because we have to notice, all the great things that are going on around us. If you have that kind of environment, where I'm complimenting others and giving credit where credit is due, they in turn will do the same thing. So, if you were to talk to teachers at my school or parents, you'll probably find a lot of them, that would be complimentary of me, especially about relationships, because, that was good advice that I got from my a previous superintendent, John Burnett. And I was fortunate. So when I'm 31 years old and I got this principal job, he said, spend time getting to know people. Pay attention to the leaders in the building. And, he knew I wasn't one of them, other than, just the titular leader at the point. But he said, make sure you're winning hearts and minds before you try to jump in and do anything crazy. So that was great advice from Mr. Burnett that I appreciated. But then also just recognizing education should be an absolutely collaborative effort. And, we aren't a bunch of independent contractors just taking care of what's going on in our room. We have to work together and we have to build one another up. Another thing that is so key in my school district is just the attention to professional learning communities. And we happen to subscribe to a lot of the ideas that come from Solution Tree Publishing Company about what a professional learning community is. I know that there are other models out there. But it's all about the importance of team, focusing on student learning, and then helping one out when it's needed.
Yeah, that's great. Did you take that first superintendent's advice when you first started as a principal there, or did you have to learn the hard way?
No, I did take his advice, and it was good advice. Because I kind of moved mid-year, so I didn't have summer to plan or anything like that. Some things happened in the district, and I was able to move over in the fall after the school year had started. So it was actually a relief for me, to know I didn't have to make some grand entrance.
Right.
It was, this school is one that runs well, and we recognize that. So it was kind of like, don't screw it up, Rees, and I didn't. So so I did take his advice.
That's good. That's good. Sometimes we hear these things and we still think, well, that's great, but I need to get this particular thing done, and I don't have time to, build a relationship, and really that's to our own folly and detriment, and that's not gonna it's not gonna work out well. So let's talk a little bit also about your podcast, because I think a lot of people who are my listeners, maybe they don't know about it. I think it's a great podcast. Tell us about your format and what your purpose is with that podcast. You've been doing it for a while. I think 60 episodes or so.
Yeah. So I am part of the podcast called Techlandia, and you can find us on Twitter at TechlandiaCast. For the most part, the focus has been on educational technology, because it's an interest that I have. But I need to give credit to John Samuelson and then Allison Anderson. They're the two who started it. So they got started back in January of 2013 and did about 9 episodes. And then I joined them for episode 10 just as a guest. And then we clicked pretty well. And they said, hey, we're kind of looking for a third person to help out with this. Would you like to do it? And, I stuck with it. So it's a lot of fun, because it allows us to connect with some really cool people, some smart people who are doing great things in the world of education. Plus, John Samuelson is just he's an absolutely funny, hysterical person. Yes. And I enjoy the time when I'm with him face to face, but then also just through the digital means that we connect with one another. And Allison is just an absolute sweetheart. Super smart person too. But also kind, and she's great to be around. So I just enjoy the hour that we get together each week when we record our podcast, and we usually do it on Saturday night about 10:30 Central Time, and we'll have a guest join us. And when we first got started, it was tell us about 3 apps that you use, and then 3 Twitter followers. So it was really tool centric. With that, so we've kind of changed our focus here. So it isn't so much about the tool, but it's actually what's going on in people's classrooms or in their learning spaces. So who's coming up? I think Alex Keeler is our guest coming up this Saturday, and just interacting with Alice on Google Plus, and then through Twitter. She shares a lot of great information. So I actually look forward to actually having an hour where we can really pick someone's brain, and then hopefully the podcast is a product that other people can listen to and say, oh, never really thought of that, or I'm going to try that. Yeah, so hopefully it has an impact on what goes on in someone's classroom. And that's our goal, is to make sure that what we share. So if you listen to this on Sunday, you'll find something that you can put to use on Monday that will make a positive difference for your students and your school.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think most of the educators who are doing podcasts or doing blog articles are are pretty much in that same boat, that they're trying to share what they're doing to help other people, and it's
Mhm.
pretty awesome. And that's my goal with this too. I one of the things that I've liked about you on that podcast, and I haven't listened to all the episodes, but your voice is typically one that is very calm and relaxed and mellow, and not full of hyperbole, and you sound like you're having a good time and enjoying
Mhm.
yourself, but not like, like crazy about the tools and and
Mhm.
what's happening. You're just even keeled, and it's very calming, and I've really enjoyed that when I've on the episodes that I have listened to.
Well, thank you. And that's typically how I am. I'm usually a pretty steady person, but then I also enjoy playing the straight man to John, who's very
Right.
funny
Yeah.
and is very quick-witted, and just he doesn't really have a filter. Whatever's on his mind comes out, and I
Uh-huh.
love that about him.
Yeah.
Where sometimes I can tend to be a little bit more reserved and think more about what I say.
Yeah.
But both of those roles have a purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know you need to get some homework done, so let me ask you my two
Yep.
final questions. I ask these on each interview I do. The first one is, what is one thing that a principal can do right now to become a transformative principal like you?
Oh, to being a transformative principal, I would just say be well read. And it's impossible to read everything that's out there about education or educational leadership. Um, Pick a topic that's most important to you, and really know it, and become an expert. Build your own strengths. I think that's absolutely crucial. But just another side one that's probably just as important is, just be a good listener, and focus on all the good things that are going on in your school, because I don't want to say that my school is like extra special, because I think if you walk into almost any elementary school, they're very positive places because they're full of kids and they're full of people who want to work with kids. So pay attention to what's going right, and then just brag in a polite way about all the good things that are going on, especially to your school community. Because name a parent who doesn't want someone to brag about their kid.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
don't really exist, I don't
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody just a little while ago, and they said, um, we were talking about some low income students, and they said that some of the parents just don't care about their kids' education, and I said, well, I don't really
Mm-hmm.
agree with that. I think every single parent cares about their child's education. Every kid wants to know their kid is being successful. I'm sorry, every parent wants to know their kid is being
Mm-hmm.
successful. And if we can be the ones to tell them the amazing things they're doing,
Yeah.
then that goes a really long way. And if we can brag about them publicly so that they see their child is getting a quote unquote award for something awesome they did,
Mm-hmm.
and that award may be I'm tweeting about it and showing a picture of something awesome, I think that goes a long way to building a really positive relationship with the parents, and I think that's
Absolutely.
very
Mm-hmm.
important. The last question is a really easy one, but you're not in your office right now, so it might be more
Mm-hmm.
difficult for you. And that is, what's something that you have in your office that keeps you focused and centered on doing what's best for kids each day?
Something that I have in my office. I get lots of notes from students, and some of them are knock knock jokes, some of them are pictures of me, some of them are pictures that students have drawn about various things that go around in school. And I get those, and right behind me, behind my desk at school, I have a wall, and I just pin them all up there, and I have a
Mm-hmm.
whole bunch, and it's fun to take a look at those. But then also, whenever I get like a nice note from a parent or a teacher, I hang on to all of those as well. The ones I get from the current school year, I keep in my upper left desk drawer. So anytime I open up to get a pen, I can run
Mm-hmm.
across those and go, "Oh, there's that nice note from Cheryl. That's fantastic to see." Um, but then in my super elaborate filing system, I have another drawer full of all those notes from my entire career as an educator, and it's fun to see those. So it's just my affirmations folder. It's the very first one I have in my file cabinet, and it's fun to take a look at those. But then one final thing would be right above my door, I have this sign posted, and it's just a good reminder for me. It says, "You are responsible for the energy that you bring into this space," which is a good reminder for me because, when I'm grumpy or scowling, someone's going to pick up on that. And I'm not going to say that I'm always positive and chipper, because I'm not. But it's just a good reminder for me to be responsible for my own energy, because no one else is going to change it for me. Someone may give me a reminder or make an observation, but I have to take care of it. I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Well, before we go, do you want to let everybody know how they can get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, sure. You can find me on Twitter. That's probably my favorite place to connect with folks. And Curt Rees, Curtrees. And if you want to take a look at some of the things that I share and blog about, just curtrees.com.
Great. Sounds awesome. Curt, thank you so much for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. And I know that a lot of people are going to learn some great things from what you said tonight. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, so I learned a lot from you too, because one of the things I'm working on right now is for my grad class is qualitative research. So I've just done an interview, and now I'm transcribing it and will code it.
Thank you so much for downloading and listening to this podcast. Please subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher, and please feel free to give us a rating on Stitcher Radio or on iTunes so that we can help spread the word about how much we're learning in this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. You can find me on Twitter at Jethro Jones.